All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to be talking about a pretty mind-bending new take on the whole simulation hypothesis. It's called the ontological cascade, and it comes from the work of a thinker named Parbij Ali. And let me tell you, it suggests reality is, well, not at all what we think it is, but probably not in the way you've heard 1,000 times before.
I mean, you know the scene, right? It's like 2 in the morning at a party, the music's finally died down, and someone inevitably leans over and asks that question. What if? What if we're all living in a simulation? It's a classic for sure. But what if the way we've all been picturing it is completely fundamentally wrong? Okay, so to really get why this new idea is such a game changer, we gotta first talk about the standard model. You know, the one that everyone usually talks about. We're gonna call it the recursion trap.
So the standard view, the one that got really popular thanks to the philosopher Nick Bostrom, is this idea of a homogeneous stack. Basically, it pictures reality as this infinite stack of computers, all just simulating other computers. And the logic, you gotta admit, is pretty compelling. It goes like this. If any civilization, anywhere, ever figures out how to create super realistic ancestor simulations, well, they're not gonna make just one, they're gonna make billions. And if that's true, statistically speaking, what are the odds that we're the one original reality and not one of the billions of fakes? The odds are not in our favor.
And that line of thinking leads us to what people call the Russian doll model. It all hinges on this key assumption called substrate independence. That's a fancy way of saying that the physical stuff a reality is made of, you know, atoms, silicon, whatever, it just doesn't matter. All that matters is the information, the code. And the big consequence of that? A simulation inside another simulation is just code running on code. It's like those nesting dolls, right? You open one up and you just find a slightly smaller, identical one inside. It's the same thing, all the way down.
But here's the problem with that model, the big limitation. If it's really just copies of copies of copies, then the universe never really evolves. It never creates anything genuinely new. It just gets a little bit fuzzier, a little lower res with each layer. It's kind of stagnant, a closed loop. And honestly, it's a little depressing, a bit of a creative dead end for the cosmos.
Okay, but what if that's not the whole story? What if that's not it at all? This is where this really radical new idea comes into play, one that completely shatters that infinite loop. We're going to dive into the idea of simulations that don't just copy, they evolve. And here's the core question that just flips that whole old model on its head. It's simple, but it changes everything. What if the next reality isn't made of code? What if it's made of something else entirely? What if a simulation isn't just a copy, but a genuine act of creation? And that question brings us to the core thesis here. We are not in a loop, we're in a cascade. The idea is that instead of just copying, simulations actually create brand new universes, each with its own unique set of rules and constraints. So for us, our nature is all about biology and atoms, but for the reality we might create, its nature could be totally different. And those new constraints, whatever they are, become the fundamental laws of that next universe.
Okay, that sounds cool, but how does this cascade actually work? Let's break it down. We're going to unpack the two core mechanics that really power this whole new way of looking at cosmic evolution.
All right, the first big concept is called substrate decoupling. And yeah, I know it sounds a little jargony, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward and totally profound. It just means that the fundamental material, the substrate, of each new simulated universe is different from the one that created it. The very stuff of reality literally changes with each and every layer.
So let's walk through an example of how this might play out. You have layer 1, that's us, our reality. It's built on biology, on atoms, on physics as we know it. Now using that stuff, we create layer 2, a digital simulation running on computers and bytes. But here's where it gets wild. The beings inside that digital world, living by their rules, could then go on to create a layer 3, a reality based on a paradigm that we, from our atomic world, can't even begin to imagine.
And that brings us to the second core mechanism. And this one is, well, it's even more mind-bending. It's called epistemic inversion. And the idea here is that what we call the laws of nature, gravity, the speed of light, all of physics, they might not be universal truths at all. They could just be the hardware limitations of the computer our universe is running on, the processing limits of our creator's reality.
Just think about that for a second. In our reality, our scientists study physics to figure out the fundamental rules of the universe. But for an AI living in a simulation we create, its science wouldn't be physics, it would be computer science. The study of information, of processing power, of memory constraints, that would be its fundamental reality. It means truth isn't universal, it's local to your layer.
So this is really the core shift in thinking, right here. We're moving away from that old idea of a homogeneous stack, the identical Russian dolls. And we're moving towards this heterogeneous cascade, a true evolutionary chain. It's not just about digital ancestry anymore. This is about something so much bigger, ontological evolution, where reality itself, the very meaning of to be, transforms with every single step.
Now, of course, an idea this massive doesn't just pop up out of thin air. It's built on the work of giants. So let's take a quick look at the intellectual family tree here and see where these ideas have shown up before in physics and philosophy.
So what makes the ontological cascade so compelling is that it's this really clever synthesis. It's not starting from scratch. It's actually weaving together the groundbreaking work of two really major thinkers, the physicist John Wheeler and the cosmologist Lee Smolin.
So here's how the pieces fit together. First, you've got John Wheeler, who gave us the iconic phrase, "it from bit." This is the idea that at the most fundamental level, all physical stuff, the "ik," actually comes from information, from bits. Then you have Lee Smolin, who proposed this wild idea called cosmological natural selection, that universes basically reproduce through black holes, and each new baby universe has slightly different laws of physics. The brilliant synthesis here is taking Smolin's idea of cosmic evolution, but swapping out the mechanism. Instead of black holes, it's our technology that drives the creation of new universes.
Okay, let's zoom out for the big finale. Because if this model's right, the philosophical implication is absolutely massive. It could mean the end of one of humanity's oldest quests, the search for base reality.
I mean, for basically all of human history, right? Philosophers, scientists, religious thinkers, they've all been searching for the bottom turtle, the fundamental layer, the ultimate bedrock truth of it all, what we call base reality.
But this whole cascade model suggests that entire search might be a wild goose chase. If the very stuff of reality changes at every level, then maybe there is no bottom. There's no bedrock to find, which leads to this incredible conclusion. Reality is not a fixed place. It is a process of becoming. It is a chain of metamorphoses with no static beginning or end.
And if that's true, it completely reframes our purpose, doesn't it? In the old Russian doll model, we're just passive. We're Sims in a game. Maybe we're just batteries powering the Matrix. But in this new view, we're anything but passive. We become the active architects, the creators of the entire next layer of existence. So forget the loop. Reality is a ladder. And we're not just building a digital box to trap ourselves in. No. We are building the very rungs that the next form of existence will use to climb to an entirely new level.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. If our creations, our technology, are really the seeds for the next link in this incredible cosmic chain, then what new, what completely unimaginable form of existence are we, are you, setting the stage for right at this very moment?